Today we will create split the wheel project using DND and Node-RED. First, let's understand the database. We have following tables where app user is used to store the user's data, expense categories for different type of expenses, group table to maintain the group and to store the group balances. So in each group, each user has how much balance can be stored here, currencies to store the different type of currencies, debt calculation to store which user need to give how much money to other user, expense split rules, so in which way the expense will be split among all the members of the group, expenses, group memberships. This is a mapping between app user and the groups. Reminder, user can put a reminder for himself. User preferences, this table is used to store the data like which user is frequently using which type of currencies. I hope you understand the database. Now let's start with the pages. So this is the DND part and these are the components. You can see heading and a component for each table. We have different charts, buttons, tabs, and these other options that we will see later. These are the different type of pages that we can create here. For example, pop-up, sidebar drawer, sidebar components, and these are the main pages. First, let's change the name of this section from main to admin. Create one more section for user. To create a new section, we need to select sub. We need to select main page, add. For a user, let's create an home page. Sub menu page. Inside we need to select user, add. So this is home page. Inside home, if we want that user will be able to see the groups data. First we need to put the heading here. Double click on this and you will able to see these different options. In the general, you can put the inner content like home. We have header size as 2, font family, different font families. For now it's Arial, and background color and color for the heading. For now it's all default, and this all the other options you will see later. So now we want the group data. So here we have a group table. Drag and drop that here. Yes. So now you can see this data which is present, and this is the grid view, the view, and this is create form, create view. Uh, this form is also called edit view. Now if you want to configure this grid, like which column need to be shown and which should not, you can double click on this and here select a mode. So all these options, whether you want the configuration for view mode that I have shown, or whether you want to configure for the create mode. For now we want to make a configuration for view mode. Select a UI mode. This is for like whenever a user come to this page, whether you want to show user view mode or edit mode first. So for now we want to show view mode first. Now general, for this component that we drag, what should be its head inner content? Like it's like an another heading. We can have group data, table heading. We will see later what it is. Add form heading. For the add form, this is for the edit form, and similarly we have here header size. It's h2 and font family Arial, and this is heading color, background color, and these are for the tables like table heading color, table background color, and table row color. You can select any of them. For now, it's all default. Navigation part is for the buttons configuration, which we'll see later. For view, like here, we can, for the view part, we can select which columns we want to be visible and what should be its column new name that we want to show to the user. We want group ID, no. We want group name, yes. Created by, no. We don't want modified by, we don't want created at, modified at is active. Yes, we want add new button, we want search option, we want edit button, we want both the headings should be visible. Heading 1 means main heading, heading 2 is table heading. We want delete option to be, and we want a separate label. So separate label should be provided here. For example, group ID, but it is not visible, so it's okay. We don't need to provide another name. For group name, I want only group should be visible. Now save and exit. So you can see here this view is changed, and this is the table heading that I have shown total data. And if you want to refresh the data, you can do by clicking here. Now the add new part is still the same. If you want to configure this, you can double click here and select the mode create. And for this, in general, we have this data, and in create part, you can select form field which name you want to show. For example, group ID will be automatically given, so we want it to be hidden. Group name we want to be visible, and it should be group name. Created by need to be visible. We don't want this created at and modified at to be visible, as we can provide default value here. For example, date. From here you can select like grid span, like how much grid it will consist. Example, for group name I select 12. And in new line, whether you want this to be in a new line, let's select one created by. Here we have validations. You can add validation in any field. For example, in group name I want it to be text. Created by is also a text. Add the error here. It must be text. Similarly below, as you can see, the grid is 12, and we have created by a new line. As we have selected there, modified by is active. So using this, you can create the new data. You can edit this data. Similarly, you can delete this data. Now let's create another page. For the user, we want that group details has a page. This page will consist of the data for each particular group. Now for each group, we want to know who are the member of that group. So by this group membership table, we can have that. We can configure that here. Don't want it to be visible. Now here for group ID, this is a foreign key for the group table, but we don't want to show the group ID. We want to show group name. So here you can select from that table whatever you want to be visible there. I want group name to be visible there, and its name should be group. App user ID. I don't want user ID. I want username to be shown there. Let such name be user. Don't want to show is active, created by, modified by. And I want all the other things to be as it is. So you can see here. So for now you can see that this table consists of all the groups. For example, hostel group, summer tour group, and office group. So how can we see for a particular group? That we will see when we will configure the button for navigation. This heading is still remaining. Let's put this. Yes, so now it's all cool. Now for each group we also want to show the group balance. So let's add that component here. Double click on this general group balance. You can make this hidden if you want. Let's do that. In view is visible for group ID as we have done before. We want group name here. We want it to be visible, and for instead of user ID we want username. We want balance amount. Now here you can see heading to is visible, but you can click here to make it invisible. Okay, save and exit. You can see the heading to is not visible. And for each group we can have the expenses. So for now there are no entries in the expense table. We can have a split rules. Let's make it default for now. Like each expense will be split equally among all the members. Group membership, reminders. Okay, so for a single group, we have enough data here to be shown. So now, whatever UI that we have created, we need to update that. So we will click on update UI and wait until it is visible again. Yes, it is visible again. Now if you want to preview this UI, you can click on the preview, but before that you need to release this UI. So click on release UI and wait until it is visible. Yes, so it's visible now. And if you click on the preview UI, a different tab will be opened, and inside that you will be able to view your pages. This is admin section. There are no pages yet. This is user section. In this we have home page, and here we have group data. Now we want that for each group, if we click on a button, we are able to view the details of that group. So we need to make a configuration for navigation from this home page to group details page. Here you can see we have group members, group balance, expense, but we need to create an navigation from home page to group details page. So let's configure that. Inside the home page, double click on this. Now come to navigation section, click on add button. This column needs to be like what value you need to pass to that page as a property. So I want group ID to be passed there. Navigation type, like what kind of page redirect it is. Is it a page redirect, means directly to the main pages, or a pop-up, or slide in drawer, or component pages? It's a page redirect. And here we have an option like home page or group details. So this is itself a home page, we don't want it, we want group details. We pass the column value, yes. What should be button name? View details. You can see here. Now for each group, whenever you will click on hostel, we will go to that page and only the details of the hostel group will be visible. For example, let's click on this. So now you can see we have only hostel data here. There is a few minutes list. Let's update the UI. Wait for it. Yes, now release the UI. Preview UI. In the home page, we want to see the data of the hostel group. So click on view details. It will fetch the data. Yes. Yes, so we have this group data for hostel, like who are the member of the hostel group, John and Michael. And in the hostel group, let's try again. From the home page, we have hostel. Let's click on view details. These are the data of the hostel group, and here we have balance of the hostel, like John has 50 and Michael has 70, and there are no expense here. Okay, So in this group detail, we also want one more thing like depth. Like in this group, which user need have to give the amount to other user. For that, we need depth calculation. Let's configure this depth. Don't want to put navigation. We need to make the view. All right. So now what we want to do, like whenever an expense will be added, it will be equally distributed among the user, and they will be entering the depth for that users, or we can say the group member. But before that, let's create some page for the admin. Or wait, here when we add the expense, we we can create the category. Here we have expense category, so we can add a button here for that. And before configuring this button, let's create a page, pop-up page to add expense category. There are already two categories here, dinner and taxi. But we want that whenever a user comes to this page, he will directly able to add the new data instead of first viewing the grid mode or view mode. In general, yes. So we need to configure this also. Select create mode here. In general, the heading. What we want to be hidden is expense category. Want category name, but it should be proper column name. input controls, you can have the controls here. For example, we want text input. Validation you can add here as you have seen previously. Save and exit. Okay, now let's configure that button. It's present in group details. Double click on it and general navigation. And navigation can select navigation type pop-up, and the pop-up page that we want to show is at expense category. Now let's create some pages for the admin. So create a home page for admin. So here you can see that we have different type of pages, and we have this add sidebar components. We can utilize that using these tabs. I will show you how it will work. So we have tab heading. We can create different tabs here on the same page, like add navigation. We need to configure these buttons here, but before configuring button, we need to create those pages. So add sidebar component pages. Now, what thing admin can do? So first create an app user page in which admin can view the user of this website and some details of them. Add this, configure this page. We have app users here. We don't want password to be visible. You can add new users. Fine for the admin. Don't want heading to be visible. Alright. Save and exit. So now he can see the users, and if we want that he can see the users group data or group detail, we can create a new page similar to previous group details. Now we can have this group membership table. In app user, now configure a button, select the navigation, add button. Now we will pass the app user ID, and this user ID will be passed to the group details page, and we will able to see the name of the groups in which this user is part of, and type is component pages as we have created group details as a component page. Group details, save, exit. So now for Michael, if I want to see the, you can see Michael is part of three groups: postal, summer tour, office. Now let's configure. Now let's create some more pages for the admin. Like he can add the currencies. For that we need currencies component here. Okay, so here he can add currency, but we want this page like it's add currency page. So whenever he will come, we want first him to view the edit mode. Now save and exit. You can see now he will be able to view this. Let's configure this create mode. So that all the other things can be done. Okay, so this page is done. Now what an admin can add, he can also add expense categories, but it's all right as he will be able to see the user preferences. So let's create a page for that. Now we don't want that admin can add this or edit this data as it will be generated based on the user and will not be able to delete this. Save and exit. So we don't have any user preference right now because there are no expenses. So how we will be able to collect this data? So first we need to add the expense for this data to be collected. So these are the pages for the admin. Now we need to configure these pages on the home page. In the home we have this tab. Inside the navigation, add a button, navigation type, component pages. Inside the component, first select the app user. Button name is app user. Add another button for component pages, group details. Or we don't want this because it will be redirect from the app user page. Add user preference. He will be able to view this. Add one more button for the expense categories. Oh, sorry, it's currency. So add currency. So you can see here we have this app user. From app user we can view the group details. So we need to update this UI and release UI. You can see we have clicked on John, so we have the data of the John. John is member of hostel and summer tour. Alright, we will preview it later. Now let's come to now. We want that whenever someone will add expense here, it should be splitted equally among the members of the group. For example, in this group, we have two members, John and Michael. So whenever Michael add some amount here, it should be split between John and Michael. So how we can do this? For these things, we can create the Node-RED workflows. So anything like this, which is a time-consuming process, which consists of multiple tables. For example, here we want whenever expense table will be updated, we need an entry in the depth table, or we have a mathematical processes to be done in the background. These all things can be handled in the Node-RED workflows. So we have this Node-RED, and inside this panel, you can get more knowledge about the Node-RED by seeing a tutorial. And in this I am going to tell you how to create a basic flow, or it's above the basic, like how to achieve that function that expense will be split among the members of the group. So for that, you can see here we have provided you default nodes. Expenses. So here we have this node, what we called add expense operation trigger. So whenever any entry will be added in the expense table, this node will be triggered. So for that we need to create a flow which will do all our work. So we have some flows by default created for you. You can use them. For example, for expense part, you can have when expense operation trigger node is present here, and we have message payload, like whenever the expense will be added, this flow will be triggered using this node, and that data whatever you have added in the expense table should be visible in this debug console. Now we want this flow to be modified. So let's modify this. Delete this. And whenever expense will be added, we want that the group in which this expense was added, we want the members of that group. So for that, we need we need the group details. So for group detail, we want node get group members, and that can be done from the membership table, group membership table. We can search here group. Here it is group memberships. Now what we want get means we want to get all the data from this group member table. So let's use get all records, and then we'll fetch the data. So I have connected this node. So first this node will be triggered whenever someone will add the expense in the expense table, and then we will get all the records like all the group members from all the table, and then we want to filter that based on the group ID that we receive from the expense table. For that we need to add a function. Now let's configure this. We want filter by group ID, and what need to be put here, the code. I have already written the code. I will just explain it to you. So what we want that whenever an expense will be added in a particular group, for example group 1, so we want all the members of that group. So we using this get all records get all the members of all the groups. Now we want to filter it by using group ID. So here in the message body we will have that, for example this node is getting data from group membership table. So we will have that data in message dot underscore group memberships. So we are iterating that data, and we have this items dot group ID, which if it is equals to, now previous to this we have the data from the expense table which was added. So from that we will get the group ID, and we don't want, for example Michael have added, so we don't want Michael to be consistent there. So, so example, if we have two persons, John and Michael, so we only want Michael to be there. Only one John to be there, as Michael have added this data. And we will push that here. And we have this index because we want to iterate. Now here, inside this list, we have all the app users ID. Now we want to iterate this. For that, we will require a loop node. We have that here. And what should be the condition? Like we want it should be run on the condition, and it should check it before running the loop. Inside the condition we need to write message.index should be less than app user id list.length. So it is similar to the for loop that we have used before. If you remember, I have created this message dot underscore index to be equals to 0 in the previous node. Condition done. Here you can see I have initialized it using the 0. So what we want that all the members of this group need to be part of that expense. So for that, for each group, for each user, we want an entry in the debt table. For that, we need to create the debt object. This is the simple JavaScript code. Here the amount, what, like this is the debt calculation object, and in this we want amount, and it should be divided by the number of members of that group. So we have this list length, and this is amount, and we have created the object of debt calculations. We will increase the index for the iteration. Done. Now here you can see end of loop, and this is pass of loop. So we'll pass the loop, and now we need to post the debt calculation. So for that we will have a node provided by us. Have this post debt calculations. These are the subflows. You can explore them and can modify the code written inside them. Now whenever the loop will end, we want a debug node to be put there. And it will show the complete message body. Now with this, we also want that whenever an expense will be added, we want to make an entry in user preference. As I have told you previously, that user preference data will be fetched based on the expense that are added by an user. So we need to create the body like object for the user preference. Present here. You can see here that these data are from the previous add expense subflows. So we can access those using this message dot underscore expenses. And we want user preference post just similar to the debt calculation. This is post user preference. You can also put a debug node here. Want to complete message object. Done. So we have created a subflow which will split the expense among all the group members using a loop, and will also create an entry in the user preference. Deploy this. It will take some time for deploying. So as you can see, it is successfully deployed. Now let's test this. So this is our DND. We have, let's update UI. Place UI. Review the UI. And here you can see this import config, export config. So whatever PCs we have created, you can save this in your PC by clicking on export config, and whenever you comes again, or you have created a new project and you want to add these pages, you can do that by clicking on import config. And if you want to delete any of them, you can directly drag this and put uh, wait a second, you can use this delete, and you can directly drag it and put here, and it will be deleted. For example, like this. But I don't want this, so I will not update the UI and it will not be saved. So it's preview page. Inside admin you can see here. So it's still pending, we have not done. Tab heading, app user, we have different data. User preference still empty. Add currency, you can see we directly come to this add currency form page or create mode. And let's add a currency code created by. So in the we have this username for master admin. Yes. So euro data has been added. All right. Now let's test that Node-RED workflow whether it's working or not. So in the home page, we want for like let's take office, view details for office. You can refresh here. In the office, there is Matthew, Marla, and Michael. Group balance of them will be visible here, and we can add the new expense. Let's add expense. We can configure this page again. It's not looking very good. So for expense, in the create mode, create hidden. It's either can be radio or drop down. As it is a foreign key, I want it to be drop down. amount. All right. Currency and drop down. Expense category. So for the user, comes to home page, and for office, view details. We want to add expense here. Amount, let's say 90, created by. So for now, I am as an admin entering this data, so it should be my username, group ID for office, app user ID. Like for now, I am as a, for example, Marla. Adding this, add currency. Let's take Indian rupee. Expense category for the taxi. Save this. So we want that there should be a entry in depth. Let's see whether workflow have been triggered or not. So you can see in the debug console using this debug notes that we have put in depth calculation, there are entries done. So let's refresh this preview page. Yes, so we have this in the Matthew and Michael. Hope it makes sense and we will be able to understand the whole process. And if you want to see in the entry in the user preference, yes, so there is Marla who uses Indian rupee. Thanks, I hope you will find this helpful.